2024 regular city council meeting is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, council, please put away cell phones. If you have personal business during the meeting, please move for a recess. If you are participating telephonically, please mute your phone unless you are speaking. Also, when speaking, please state your name for those streaming the meeting. As a reminder to attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is in the back of the council chambers above the clock. Robert's Rules of Order is the parliamentary authority for council meetings under Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090. Under this authority, I respectfully request council observe the following. Kindly seek recognition before speaking. That no member speaks more than twice on the same motion without an affirmative vote on a motion to suspend the rules. That no member speaks a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. The purpose of recognizing these rules is to ensure the right to speak is equally respected and that discussion is not dominated. Before we move on, I request a moment of silence for Doug Holler, who recently passed away. Mr. Holler was a former council member from 2006 to 2012 and the city's deputy mayor from 2008 to 2012. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson is absent and excused unless there's objection from the body. Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Velock is not currently here, but does anticipate calling in a little later this evening. So at this time, she is absent. Councilmember Rubeo.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum. Councilmembers Cottle, Graham, Crafton, and Rubio are present in council chambers. Councilmembers Johnson and Velock are absent.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Graham, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Before changes are discussed, are there conflicts of interest to declare?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Rubio.
thank you. On the agenda tonight is AM number 24-64, approving a contract amended to Big Dipper Construction Incorporated in the amount of $97,800 for additional work on the Wasilla Train Depot Site Improvement Project. While I do not have a conflict of interest to declare, I want to make the public aware of my relationship with Big Dipper Construction. The company is owned by my father, he is not a member of my household, and I have no financial interest in his company. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, is there any objection to amending the order of business by moving new business before unfinished business? Mr. Graham?
No objection.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Yes, could I move items, two of them here, 8.3.1, resolution number 2409 to new business, as well as 8.3.3, resolution number 2411 to new business as well, please.
Okay.
Councilmember Crafton, I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Yeah, 8.3.1,
Uh-huh,
resolution 2409,
uh-huh.
and then 8.3.3, resolution 2411.
And did you want to also move the accompanying AM? No?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there other changes? Mr. Graham?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move item 8.4.4 to new business with the accompanying AM.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We are now at special orders of the day. There is one proclamation that I will read. City of Wasilla Proclamation honoring Alaska Day. Whereas on March 29th, 1867, U.S. Secretary of State William Henry Seward and the Russian minister to the U.S. completed the treaty that ceded Alaska to the United States. And whereas on March 30th, 1867, the United States purchased Alaska from Russia for the sum of $7.2 million, approximately 2 cents per acre. And whereas the official transfer of land occurred on October 18, 1867 in Sitka, with a ceremony that included 250 U.S. troops, 100 Russian troops, and the raising of the American flag for the first time over the Alaskan territory. And whereas Alaska's territorial legislature declared Alaska Day a holiday in 1917. And whereas Alaska Day was first celebrated in 1949 with the unveiling of a bronze statue named the Prospector, which still stands as a tribute to Alaska's pioneers. And whereas this important moment in our state's history laid the foundation for Alaska's advancement as an official portion of the United States of America, which did not formally occur for another 92 years. With Alaska gaining statehood January 3rd, 1959. And whereas October 18th, 2024 marks the 157th anniversary of the formal transfer of Alaska from the Russian Empire to the United States of America. Now therefore I, Glenda D. Ledford, Mayor for the City of Wasilla, do hereby proclaim October 18th, 2024 as Alaska Day in Wasilla and ask all to join me in commemorating the date Alaska joined the United States, dated this 14th day of October 2024. Yes. And we are now at Commission and Agencies report. Planning Commission, Ms. Nygaard, please provide a report on the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. September 24th, the Planning Commission had its monthly meeting. We did approve 44,000 square feet for the My House facility that will be up Wasilla Fishhook Road, and also directed the attorney to create a resolution addressing Resolution 2425.
Okay, thank you. Wasilla High School Student Representative. Please state your name for the record.
Can I bring this closer? Hello, my name is Michelle Collins, and I am the Wasilla High Senior Class President with a few things to share from Warrior Nation. This last weekend, Wasilla had a delegation of 17 students attend the State Alaska Association of Student Governments Fall Conference in Delta Junction. Students from all over the state, from Utqiagvik to Sitka to King Cove, attended. The resolution from Wasilla was passed with unanimous consent. Wasilla High will be hosting the first ever state flag football championships this Thursday through Saturday, with a fireworks display immediately to follow the championship game. This is the first ever flag football sanctioned Alaska State tournament, and we are thrilled to host this event for 3 years. Wasilla plays their first game against South at 7:30 on Thursday. We are also the host site for the Division III Football State Championship game, even though Wasilla is not in that division. Volleyball is playing at Diamond this week, currently ranked the 2 best teams in the state. Wrestling and hockey are beginning their seasons. Brian Cook was named Alaska CTE Teacher of the Year. He will be getting his award tomorrow afternoon. Vinoy Electric will be starting an apprenticeship program during 4C starting next month. And the ASVAB is starting tomorrow, and the PSAT and SAT is next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Hearing none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, We will now hear from the city lobbyist. Chris Noss.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, Chris Noss, Managing Partner for Confluence Strategies out of Juneau. So thank you for taking some time and just kind of check in a little bit of what's happening both at the state and at the federal cycles as we kind of come up on another election cycle here in Juneau. I think the big thing for looking at the past and just over the last couple of years I've been in the city, I think it's really important just to reference the relationship building, I think, not only with the federal delegation personally, but also with the legislative delegation and the legislature in general. As folks know, we've had about 70% turnover in the state legislature over the last 2 to 4 years, 50% on the average. So, and given the fact that we have a lot of contested races, the fact that we have Proposition 2 on a repeal, which is right now polling within the margin of error, I think that these open primaries have really produced these bipartisan coalitions in Juneau. And that creates a lot more probably front-end work for local governments like the city of Wasilla. The tough part about this cycle is, we have an open primary. We had a 16% turnout, which is extremely low. Most of the closed primaries are about 20%. And just trying to get the data points on that primary election, what it means, but it doesn't, it looks like the Senate will most likely be anywhere from a 9 to a 10 Democratic controlled if you maintain the 3 conservatives outside, potentially 4 to 5. It's important to say that if the Senate delegation, particularly from the Valley, the Showers, the Hughes, if they hit that certain point under our uniform rules, then they're an actual organized minority. So if they're still in the minority, whether they are or not, I think it's important that they actually get those committee seats for the Valley. Secondly, I think that in the House, I think that Speaker Tilton has done a very good job in terms of trying to wrangle a 22-member bipartisan coalition. I think the challenge is keeping that majority intact. She's going to have to probably have a clean sweep in and around the bases, probably a large red wave on election day, as there's a lot of seats that are up for grabs, and I think it's going to be really difficult to probably grab all of those. But they're definitely, as you can see in these races, with no campaign funding limits, a lot of outside money in these races right now. And so, kind of going from that, looking at the state, the other thing that we in Wasilla need to realize is that, if a Trump presidency is to reemerge, there is a probability that our governor in his last 2 years could get tapped for a cabinet position, and that's a real reality. And if that happens, some of the things that automatically come to mind from my standpoint representing the city is, the governor has been pretty strong on things like defined benefits, changes to the retirement system for teachers, for public safety employees. The reality is that in the legislative body right now, you have the votes to pass defined benefit changes in the Senate. You are within 1 to 2 votes in the House. And if the House goes more moderate, you have the governor. If you have a change in governor, you have to reassess that whole situation from a defined benefit standpoint, because you have a lieutenant governor who has a closer relationship with labor. And why I say that is there is discussion in Juneau, or has been discussion in Juneau, and I don't want to, ring the bell, but ultimately, if they do change defined benefit systems, someone's going to have to pick up that paycheck and those changes in terms of the state appropriation side, and that could potentially be a turn on to more local contribution. And so I would just make that a point of awareness as things move forward. The other piece that I think is important to talk about going into the next session is just cook inlet gas. There is a shortage. I think that we heard all of that. I know the mayor's on the mayor group, if you will, for cook inlet producers. You have primarily one, you just started number 2 company producing. Hillcorp drilled about 20 wells in Cook Inlet here this last year. Hillcorp does not drill exploration wells, they drill existing wells. Just to kind of put things into perspective, every well that they drill and they have success on, you have about a 30% reduction in that well annually in terms of production. And so 20 wells barely is keeping you afloat. And just in the last week, Fury, or Hex, just utilized the jackup rig in Cook Inlet and started drilling an exploration well. So the issue of Cook Inlet gas shortage is not going away, is really what I'm saying. And there is a really high probability that the instars who have applied for an RCA permit, which I'm sure you folks are aware of out at Point McKenzie, are looking to potentially import gas. And I do think that is going to be a tough political discussion, but it's probably going to have to be a discussion that takes place this session. I would also tell you, from a standpoint of just infrastructure and development, hats off to the city in terms of securing good contractors, thus far reliable contractors. Just from a pure business standpoint, some of the other clients I represent, the city of Anchorage just went through a significant RFP project process on what they call Terminal 1 of the Port of Alaska, which is about a $650 million RFP, and they had no bidders. And so just kind of opens up your eyes in terms of what those contractors are. And you potentially have mirrored terminals, Terminal 1 Matson, Terminal 2 Tote. They're most likely going to mirror those terminals, so the tariff stays the same. But it also shows you that if a contractor doesn't bid on one, and would most likely they did a good job get the other, just kind of shows you what a contractor market this is right now in Alaska with all the dollars in play, lack of workforce, etc. So just things to be mindful of. I would also tell you one of the bright parts of at least the Dunleavy administration right now is the work DOT is doing on West Houston access. I think that is becoming more of a legacy project. That's actually something they might actually get done in the last 2 years of this administration. So it's something that we're all kind of watching. Obviously the STIP did get worked out, the State Transportation Improvement Plan. There's millions of dollars for the Matsu and some of those other areas. But what I would tell you is also, stay the course on the priorities. I think you're going to see the resolution of priorities that were merged from a state and federal standpoint. I would tell you that there's probably more state money available for the water sewer projects and the infrastructure projects. And there's probably more federal opportunity via grants for the airport expansion today. And what I would say is, the less attractive issues like the water sewer, I just think that there's more DEC grant programs. I think we had the Commissioner of DEC out last week looking at how to permit, certain areas with public works. And I just think that even though they're probably less attractive political issues, I think that they're probably more necessary. And I think that's something that the delegation can probably get behind if the delegation's in a position to help in Juneau this year. And also the federal side, given the fact where Senator Murkowski sits on appropriations, I think there's just more access points to those funds moving forward. The other thing I would tell you of mindfulness is, we talk about the airport and the good things that are happening out at the airport here. And, I actually had a meeting with the Commissioner of Transportation last week, and they've restructured some of the divisions within state DOT and have actually started an air cargo component under the aviation section of the Department of Transportation. And why I say that is some of you have heard about the Northlink project, which is a number of heavy airplane stands that they're building on the southwest side of the runway. Well, Atlas Air actually came in and they were working on a lease for 20 more hard stands on the Amazon contracts on the west side of the north-south runway. And that's about another $250 million project. So, that space, that access point, that traffic is significantly increasing at the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. So I do think that staying the course in terms of opportunities, it's something to definitely keep your eye on in terms of expansion in Wasilla down the road and what you want to do there. Let's see, some of the other pieces I just like to tell folks. You know, the state is in and around $70 a barrel in terms of oil. And like I said before, on an annual basis, every dollar and a change is about $100 million to the state treasury, okay, on an annual basis. And at this point, you know, depending on what happens in the international scene with the Middle East, et cetera, if you maintain that $70 barrel of oil, you'll most likely have a deficit year in terms of state revenues. And so, not saying that's gonna happen, we'll have a better idea when the fall revenue forecast comes out in the next 4 weeks. But it's just something that the city needs to be mindful of in terms of moving forward and how, once the state organizes their legislature, how they actually want to execute a budget. I would just tell you that the other thing that I look at is representing a lot of resource development companies, you know, like a ConocoPhillips. The state is not going to see those revenues like they do in Prudhoe Bay off of Willow, because Willow is in the National Petroleum Reserve. So the state, you know, those will go to the federal government. So, you know, they're saying that the Office of Management and Budget is saying that there's kind of a revenue bridge or a gap between FY26 and basically FY34 until that revenue dip comes back into the black and actually has a pretty good bridge of revenue. So that's something also just to be mindful of in terms of planning and et cetera. But I think for the most part, a lot of challenges at the state side, you know, workforce. A lot of departments are having challenges getting, you know, proper execution of programs. I'm seeing more divisions in the state, particularly the Department of Health, try to contract out with third-party vendors, and everything is just taking an extremely long time to move forward. And I think unfortunately, that's just the sign of the times. But I will tell you, I think that some of the money that we've seen off IJA, CARES, those monies are actually starting to pop up a little bit more. So I do think that there's more grant opportunities. Crystal's done a very good job with staff in terms of trying to identify where the city can execute. And I think, you know, it's just in the last couple of years, I think it's been over $11 million in terms of projects and whatnot. So, you know, with that, I think there's a lot more to go, but a lot more success, you know, once we create those relationships. But happy to answer any questions from the group.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Chris, for being here today. So while we've got you here where you can talk, and the renewal of your contract is on the agenda for this evening, can you fill us in a little bit about, you know, exactly what you helped the city accomplish as far as you know, your relationships and the budgetary items during this past year?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've been with the city now 2 years, and I think that the significant pieces have been the airport expansion and also the water sewer, the interconnect with the borough piece, and also I think it was about $3.5–4 million there this last session for FY25, and prior to was, you know, anywhere from 5 to, at the state side, 5, and then another 3 federally for the airport. So I think, you know, I would say probably in that roundabout $10 to $11 million.
Okay. And on the personal relationship side, I know in Congresswoman Peltola's office, there's been a tremendous amount of turnover, which makes it very hard to, you know, for me anyway, to get a hold of her and talk to her about anything. Are you, you know, finding somebody in that office that will actually answer your phone calls with all the turnover?
I'm actually, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of lucky. I can text her directly just because of our relationship when she was in the legislature. But, you know, my go-tos in that office have always been former legislative aides, Logan Basner, who is her transportation committee aide. That seems to be probably the most connect in terms of getting answers quickly with her, but I do think that her office is still working through becoming more efficient, I guess is probably the correct term in this form. But I wish that there was some more responsiveness, but I do think that it's been a challenge the last couple of years.
But you do think you have a solid relationship?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, good to see you guys.
Thank you for being here. We will now hear from the Finance Director, Director Olin.
Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm just gonna guide you through some key sections of the code. The code for the finance office basically is all encumbered into Chapter 5. And Chapter 5 is focusing primarily on our city financial governance and our budgeting procedures, along with our procurement policy. The goal of this presentation, excuse me, is to give you a comprehensive understanding of how our city manages its financial operations, particularly the annual budget process, the capital projects, our fiscal provisions, and our purchasing procedures. And by the end of this, I hope you guys have a clearer picture of how these regulations contribute to the maintaining our fiscal stability and our accountability in our city government. Chapter 5 outlines the city's financial governance, including our budgeting processes, our financial management, and then our fiscal policies. And it's emphasizing our essential procedures and our timelines. With regards to that, the very first chapter that we have within is our financial policies.
Nikki Belock has joined.
Is 5.02, which is our financial policies, and it is anchored under the first section of 5.02010, and this is our financial policies. The City of Wasilla is committed to the upholding our financial practices that align with our generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. This is crucial because GAAP provides our standardized framework to ensure our financial records are transparent, accurate, and comparable. And over this time, you'll also see there are 3 other ordinance or fiscal policies that we abide by, also within regards to the budget. One of it is our overall goals. We want to ensure that we have long-term fiscal stability. Another one is our operating budget policies as they relate to the preparation, the adoption, and the execution of it. And lastly is our accounting, our auditing, and our reporting policies. This ensures our reliable, accurate, and financial reporting, our internal controls, and our independent audit. Actually, we have our independent auditors here this week. They're here for this whole entire week right now. We're actually in the middle of our field work for fiscal year 2024. So we are currently performing our annual financial audit in hopes to being completed here in the next month or so to present to the council.
Madam Mayor? So Cassie, back to the first bullet there where you talk about GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, which is a civilian term. Isn't there a different term for government accounting because we do some things significantly different than the civilian world?
No, there's GAAP, and then there's other standards that we go by, which is the GASB, which is our Governmental Accounting Standard Board. So we do GAAP and GASB also. So there's different pronouncements, and then GAAP is the actual standards and frameworks that we work through.
But GASB would outweigh GAAP, is that my
Yes.
understanding?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Correct. The other part of this is 5.02070 also has a part that we will strive to receive the prestigious awards with the Government Finance Officers Association, which is GFOA. We strive to get to the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which is our commitment to a quality financial management. Next is going to be our 5.04020, which is the annual budget. The annual budget starts with each department submitting a detailed budget estimate, which are compiled by the finance director. The compilation, it's a comprehensive exercise that ensures all city operations are funded adequately for the year ahead. This is then the proposed budget is then submitted to the city council on or before May 30th of each year, as per this code. This timeline is crucial because the council must adopt the final budget by June 30th in order for us to continue to operate by July 1st, which is the start of our fiscal year. The timely adoption of the budget ensures that the city operations continue without interruption and provide a financial roadmap for the upcoming fiscal year. In addition, our capital projects are planned not only for the coming fiscal year, but they are planned for the next 5 years so that we ensure we have a long-term strategy. Our capital projects require careful planning, expressly regarding our funding sources and our estimated costs, which need to be clearly detailed in our annual budget, and which we ensure that the city's infrastructure and major initiatives are adequately funded over the long term. Continuing on with 5.04140, it states that the city council will establish the manner for the budget presentation and the submission of the budget. This will be brought before the council at the next meeting on October 28th in regards to how we will be establishing the presentation for the upcoming fiscal year 2026. Another part of 5.04 is the public involvement, which is also the key part of the process. And before we finalize the budget, is it adopted, public hearings are held. These hearings are allowed the citizens to provide input, share concerns, offer feedback on the proposed budget, which is important for fostering our transparency and encouraging community participation in our final decision making. And to the nitty gritty of it all, the next couple slides will be the transfer of appropriations. And so this is all coming out of one paragraph of 5.04150 is the number on it. Section 1.04 discusses the process for transferring appropriations. So once the budget is sent, there are often adjustments needed during the fiscal year to respond to unforeseen circumstances or shifting priorities. And transfers between different funds, such as a transfer from the general fund to the water fund, they require a formal ordinance passed by the city council. And this ensures the major changes to the allocation of resources are transparent and approved by the city council. Within a single fund.
Madam Mayor? Am I missing how that's done up there? It says, may be made except by ordinance. Is it may be made only by ordinance? May not be made except by ordinance? What am I missing there? Or maybe the word accept is not part of that concept? What?
Through the chair to Councilmember Graham, I think that's what it means is you don't have to approve the ordinance. Right?
Well, this is what I'm asking. That was my understanding, so I'm
Yep.
asking.
Sorry. Yep.
That's exactly what it means.
It'd be nice to rewrite that. So.
Where was I? Sorry. Within an accounting fund or a single fund, smaller transfers are more flexible. So the mayor can authorize a transfer of unencumbered funds up to $10,000 between departments without requiring council approval per fiscal year. Let me go through. I have more. So this information is actually coming out of our FY23 audit. It is found on page 70 of it. So amendments of our budget occur all the time through the year. So all new appropriations are authorized by an appropriating ordinance that amends the annual budget. For instance, new grants, anything of that nature that we receive. There are actually a couple of them, I believe, in our packet for tonight, such as the legislative grants that we've received. That's how we appropriate the funds and set up the appropriations of that. Once we have that, a resolution of the city council is required to move appropriated amounts between funds, departments, projects within the same fund, so from the general fund to the water fund. And then the administration is authorized to transfer funds within a department without council action. For instance, I can transfer money from the finance supplies to the finance tools and equipment. There's no limit as long as you stay within your budget and everything balances out at the end of that. Currently, as it stands right now, there is nothing in code that allows us to not transfer money from personnel to non-personnel, such as professional, which are due to vacancies. And we don't do that until the transfer doesn't happen until our vacancy savings are recognized. And what that means is, for instance, one of the bigger areas obviously is our planner. As that vacancy has happened from July 1st of the fiscal year until now, as we take our payrolls, that person who would be in that position would be paying it. We figure out what we have budgeted that position at, and as those payrolls come down, and they should have been done, that amount is allowed to be transferred within that department of planning. So if it needs to be transferred into professional other services to have a planning consultant or something of that nature, that is how we deem the time that it can be moved between personnel and non-personnel. We have seen more of these happening as vacancies are harder to fill and harder to get people in them, and so we have been moving money from personnel into non-personnel due to those reasons, just because we are needing to have third-party contractors come in and fill positions to get tasks and other things done that we do not have current staff in. And last but not least, the mayor can transfer up to $10,000 between departments within the fiscal year. The department is defined in the audit as stated as the budget is prepared by the fund. So we have it by general fund, capital fund, water fund. Then we have a function, which for instance would be public safety. And then we have a department within there, and the department is patrol. So we have patrol, investigations, those are each separate individual departments, and they are all under the public safety umbrella, and so there's $10,000 to shift between those two departments. There's $10,000 to shift into code compliance, different areas of that nature, and that's basically how our budget and our audit are both developed and how they are both accounted for within our software system currently. All right. The last one in the 5.04 is 160, which is our lapse of appropriations. So this addresses what happens to unspent budget allocations at the end of the fiscal year. For our operating budgets, any funds that are not fully expended or encumbered by June 30th, they automatically lapse, which means they are no longer available for use in the next fiscal year. And this is typically a practice to ensure fiscal discipline and prevent departments from overextending their financial obligations. This money is then returned to the general fund balance is where unassigned is where it ends up happening at the end of the audit once everything kind of flows through the system. However, our capital project appropriations are handled differently. Per code, our capital projects often span multiple years, and so these appropriations for projects do not lapse at the end of the fiscal year, and instead they remain in force until the project is either completed or abandoned. And if a project shows no financial activity, such as disbursements, encumbrances of any kind in there, then it is deemed abandoned, and then those funds return to the fund balance of which that capital project is part of. So there's a capital project fund, there's capital projects within our enterprise of water, sewer, airport, and in the Menard also. So each one of those, if there's a project within there that is either completed or abandoned, then that money returns back into their fund balances. And then eventually what would happen is if money is needed to come out of those fund balance for any reason, a lot of times it would either need to be done through an ordinance, or we will do it through, we have a stabilization of our fund balance that normally happens after our audit. We'll be coming hopefully here in the next month or two once our audit is complete. And that's the other area that we do stabilization, which we would move money from the fund balances and stabilize those based upon our current policy that we have. So that's the part about budgeting. And so the next part is going to be about our procurement procedures that we have. This is a brief overview. It's not the whole nitty-gritty of it. There's a lot of policy and procedures that happen within our procurement. So I kind of just picked out the few that we have, the main parts of it, and then can go into further detail if we need to. So basically, the purpose is to provide the overview, and this all comes under 5.08 of the code. And so this applies to all our city departments and officials involved in the purchasing decisions. And the key principles are transparency, accountability, and the value for our money. So moving on to 5.08070 is the approval of our contracts. Section 5.087 deals with the approval of contracts. For contracts involving up to $30,000, the mayor has the authority to execute these without council approval. And this allows for the streamlined decision-making on smaller contracts. However, contracts exceeding the $30,000, the city council must approve the contract before it can be executed. This approval process ensures the significant financial commitments by the city are subject to oversight by our elected officials. And some of the main, the main key elements of this contract, which goes before you in regards to an action memorandum, include our contractor's identity, the contractor's price, the goods and services that are going to be purchased, along with the timeline of the for delivery or the performance under the contract. In regards to contract amendments, they are addressed in 508-090. This section emphasizes the contract amendments cannot be used as a way to bypass our competitive bidding processes. And if an amendment causes the contract price to exceed $30,000 or more than the 110% of the original contract price, then a council approval is required. This provision ensures that contract modifications are subject to the same level of scrutiny as the original contract and prevent abuse of the amendment process to circumvent the procurement rules. Next, we have section 508-100. This covers our competitive sealed bidding. It's required for all purchases exceeding $10,000. And this is an essential process to ensure our fair competition and to get the best value. This process starts with a public notice inviting bids from interested vendors. Bidders submit sealed bids, which are then opened and valued based on pre-established criteria. And then the contracts are awarded to the lowest responsible bidder who meets the required specifications. This method ensures that the city receives the best price for the services or goods it needs while maintaining a fair and open process. Section 508-120 also focuses on competitive sealed proposals, which are going to be the RFP process, which are used in cases where factors other than price are crucial. So for instance, when the city needs specialized services or technical expertise, the RFP is issued. It outlines a project scope and the requirements, and then vendors then submit detailed proposals, which are evaluated based on the combination of factors such as the qualification, the approach, and the pricing. And this process allows the city to select a vendor who offers the best overall value, even if their price is not the lowest. And that's kind of key, the difference between our bids and our proposals. The last part we have here, so this is actually a sheet that we hand out to, it's very small, very little, it's just, I can hand you all one. I actually have a document of it. This is actually kind of our workflow that we go through for everyone when we go through the process and kind of ask people what they're wanting. And so it depends on whether it's a general purchase, which is for goods, repair and maintenance, things of that nature, or whether or not it's a professional service. And then depending on the dollar amount, it goes through that process based on our code. And then this begins the process of procurement, whether it needs to go through a RFP, if it needs to go through a bid, or if we need to do other items as related to code, depending upon how it falls through the flow. Otherwise, after that, that's everything I had in regards to kind of the big overview over umbrella, I guess, of the code in regards to budgeting and for purchasing. And if there's any other questions, I can take for you.
Madam Mayor, can we get a copy of this,
Yeah.
for PDF, just so I can't really see it, and I think the black screens, they didn't show up, the white part didn't show up on mine, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you. And the chief might want to jump in here. Him and I were having a conversation around the purchasing of your police vehicles. And so looking at this, it sounds like they fall in the category, they're over $30,000, so we have to come to the council for approval there. And Chief, remind me, was it that you had a very short window of time to purchase them? And so him and I were having a conversation on a way to streamline this a little bit better. It's not that we don't want it to come to the council for approval. I'd love to still see it, because hey, maybe there's a time where we do want to turn down a vehicle, but at least maybe to empower him a little bit more to make something work. Is there any way in our current code, or are we talking we'd have to rewrite something? And Chief, if you need to jump in to add something there.
Currently, as it stands, we would need to write some sort of form of code, and the reason for that being is the way that code is currently written, it has to identify the actual contractor or who we're going to receive them from. As we receive bids and from the actual open market that we receive our police vehicles from, it could be Swickard, it could be whoever. Usually it's the state contract is who we kind of piggyback off of, and so we never know what that's going to be, and so that's the issue that we have currently. Jamie and I have even kind of thrown around figuring out ways to do it, even if if the council would accept us to say as the vendor of the state contract award for police vehicles or something, if we could not have to identify it, and we would return with the actual vendor once we know, because I believe we have an 18-day window currently for this year. Last year was shorter, but.
Last year it was 2 weeks, to the council through the mayor. Last year it was 2 weeks. It was unknown how long it was gonna be this year. I believe it is 18 days. And then what we're also seeing before what I mentioned is that, as you see on one of the legislation tonight, is that we're attempting to allocate 4 Tahoes. There's no guarantee that I'll get any of them. It's all kind of at the basis of what General Motors has and the allocations, when they can get it delivered, and the limited that are coming to the state of Alaska. So you're competing with other agencies that are also using the Tahoes for the state's contract. And right now we were able to get it prior to the closing of the window to the General Motors, but last year again was 2 weeks, and I can't predict on what next year is going to be. And I believe the other manufacturers are very similar into their ordering window also. So that's the current challenges that we're seeing right now. Is again, we can request 4, and there's no guarantee. Just like I mentioned in the last meeting, is that we try to order 3 and we're able to get 2. I won't know that until they accept the order and it's in production.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Cassie?
Madam Mayor, through the mayor to Cassie. And I'm gonna we got the chief here, so I'll pick on your department just for the fun of it. So Cassie, you were explaining that within a department, you can move money from supplies to tools, things like that. When we go through the budget, we kind of go through almost line by line. And frankly, we beat up departments over how much they have on line items. But if what we approve, you guys can move money around afterwards, it makes me wonder why we're approving line items. So the chief could take money from supplies where let's just say we approved $100,000 for equipment. But you can move money from supplies and janitorial or things like that to make that pot of money bigger. I really question why we do this instead of just saying, you know what, you get this much for your department for the year, make it work. And then trust you to make the decisions that this is what you need for your department for the year. Instead of us beating up line by line by line all the time. I'm not sure why we do that when you can just move money afterwards anyway. So I don't know if somebody can explain that to me.
I can't explain it to you either. And that was one of the questions I had when I first came here and read and saw the procedures and how things happened. And that's actually the question of my own that I've had. Just going through the process from last year, but I also am new, I'm only been here 10 months and kind of just am feeling out the situation. But as I've gone through this multiple times, and this is kind of what I read and live off of. Agreed. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, and maybe somebody else does, but I honestly haven't found anybody who can actually answer that question for me, so.
And maybe it needs to be a topic of discussion for the council in the future here. I think for the most part, we have department heads that we believe are knowledgeable. You know, I trust the chief to know what his department needs a lot better than what I think your department needs. And if money can be moved anyway, I just question the process that we're going through. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to say initially, I agree with Kathy for sure, because my ultimate question was, how can we move money within the department, right? Because you think about it, our one job as council members is what? The budget. And we take it home and we study it and we are driven line by line. And I was questioning this on a few of the things, like how are we getting this money moved from here to here? So it's a valid question, and that's kind of what this little preview was with Cassie. And again, I'm still lost with the fact of, I don't know why we do that and how we do that. And if you don't have the answers, I don't know who we look to. So.
I think back when this was all established, it probably was a very valid reason for doing what they were doing. Our budget was obviously, to give you an idea, all of these amounts in here, so that 30,000, the 10,000, those are all established in 2002. So that was 24 years ago when all these establishments, inflation has skyrocketed that. Our now $10,000 is now valued at, if you put it through the calculation at the inflation calculator at the State of Alaska Department of Labor, is now valued at over $45,000, technically. I mean, that's how much inflation has changed things. So the value of 10,000 back then probably was a very valid number for the small amount of budget that we had and what we were working within. We're so much larger, we have sales tax, we have everything compounding our system. So going line by line and going through our, that situation was working for that, I believe. And so I think as time has gone on, we have never adjusted the actual code to what we need to in regards to the size of our government. I guess that's the best way to say it. Why we go line by line, I don't know if that was just something that the council in previous wanted to do. It could be very well rounded. But majority of places I've been, through governments and through school districts and things of that nature, most departments do move their money between, even though it's approved. You'll see when you go through our audit, it will even talk about, there are pages, and I would have to find one off the top of my head, but it talks about our adopted budget and what our revised budget, our final budget was, and what the actuals are. So it shows that we started moving money and things of that nature, so how it happened. But also going back, I went back 20 years to all these audits and budgets, and they all state the same, that we've been doing it this way for 20 years. And so why, I can't answer why. It's a question of whether or not this is something that the council wants to continue with. I guess that's at the end of the day.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Cassie, for the presentation. But to come back to Councilperson Cottle's question, as the council, we can see whatever we want to see. So I think you bring up a very valid point, is that, some previous mayors made it a big emphasis item for them to inform the council when money was being moved around, not for approval, but for transparency's sake, so that we would understand that. So when the next budgeting cycle came around, we weren't waiting for the audit to find out what happened. We already knew what happened. And if we were uncomfortable with what was going on, then we could move that way. But I mean, that's up to us, what we want to see. If we want to put something together, I don't think finance, this may sound bad, but I don't think finance cares one way or the other. They just want to know what the rules are. And if there needs to be an IM saying that the police department moved, 10,000 from detectives to patrol, then that's certainly within the purview of the code that we have now, but certainly the council has the option to make sure that we're aware of those changes. Thank you.
Any further questions for Cassie? Hearing none, thank you, Cassie. We are now at public hearings. There are 5 ordinance scheduled for public hearing. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. First ordinance this evening for public hearing, ordinance serial number 2431, authorizing the removal of 2 undeveloped parcels identified as Lot 1, Block 1, and Lot 1, Block 2, Yenlo Square subdivision totaling approximately 4.46 acres from Planned Unit Development Number 501, returning the zoning of the parcels back to C Commercial, Downtown Overlay District, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Wasilla to reflect the change.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2431 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Tyler Robinson. I'm a Vice President of Community Development and Real Estate with Cook Inlet Housing. Thank you for hearing this ordinance today. I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Nygaard's help at getting us here. We've had a couple of parcels that have been challenging because of some previous decisions of a very specific planned unit development, which really locks in that site to a design, buildings exactly as they were drawn about 20 years ago. And so what this action does is it strips that away and just renders this lot like any other lot in downtown Wasilla. A couple things I'd point out have happened since 2005. One is Wasilla has had a plan and then passed a downtown overlay. So keep in mind, this was done before that existed. And so that overlay, as well as any changes that you all make to the downtown code, would of course be applicable to those lots moving forward. The DOT is advanced and is ready to start construction on the Yenlo Main couplet. That's a different road than what was envisioned in this PUD. And so by changing this back to zoning, we're then able to sort of specifically orient around the new design of the road, not something that was envisioned on paper 20 years ago. Finally, what I would say is we've been approached to sell the parcel. In the past 2 years, we've been unable to do that. The individual was unwilling to sort of go through the PUD project as a condition of the sale. So I would just say that it's limiting. You probably don't see too many PUDs. There's kind of a reason for it. And so this allows us to explore a number of alternatives with the parcel. Finally, that could also include, we've had conversations with Matt Valley Credit Union over the years. The platting is a little bit funky, and so even just if we wanted to give them a little land and trade a little bit more to make our parcel more developable or increase their parking availability, we wouldn't be able to do that unless the 2 parcels were zoned the same way. So with that, appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on ordinance serial number 2431? Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 24-31?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2431.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt ordinance serial number 2431. Is there discussion? Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Mr. Robinson mentioned, this is a roughly 20-year-old PUD, so a planned unit development, which couldn't be completed all in one phase. It was actually done in a couple of phases, the initial buildings that are out there, and then the idea being to bring on new buildings later on as financing developed and the need developed for limited income housing. But the city of Wasilla has grown substantially in the last 20 years. Limited income housing isn't really the best use of that land anymore, and the PUD restricts them to certain types of development which are no longer practical. So taking and changing the zoning, removing them from the PUD makes perfect sense in this case to open up some commercial land in the heart of Wasilla and to make it so that the property owner, Cook Inlet Housing, actually has a chance to put that land to good use, either through sale or development, to develop that housing elsewhere. So I'm strongly in favor.
Thank you. Is there a further discussion? Hearing none. Is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Next ordinance, public hearing, ordinance serial number 2432, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by appropriating $160,000 from the water fund balance to the oversized water main line fund for the city's portion of the main line extension projects.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2432 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2432?
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 2432.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt ordinance serial number 24-32. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions for Eric here on this one. I didn't see exactly where this water line was supposed to go. I do like the idea of assisting these businesses here and extending this water line, because basically by creating an oversized water main, it allows us to further distribute water in the future. Basically, it's just keeping our interest in the water line for future projects, future development. So I was curious where it goes. Part of the reason why I'm a little concerned around it is further development let me ask you this, where is this line going first?
Great question. So through the mayor, it's actually two lines in close proximity to each other. So these projects relate to the Steam Commons area over by Home Depot. And so one of the lines will be coming off of the Palmer-Wasilla extension onto the Lane Dental property. And maybe I'll back up just a little bit so you can understand the vehicle. So when a building is large enough that typically when it needs fire service, they'll be required to install hydrants. That's a large enough leg that we can join that developer with some extra money to upsize the pipe. So the developer is still paying the main portion of the installation to get the fire service they need, but we can make sure that we have some available funding to go from a 6-inch to an 8 or a 10-inch. That gives us that future expansion that we're desiring. And so we join that development partner in looking to the future. So if we use Lane Dental as an example, they need to have at least one fire hydrant. They work with the fire department to figure out where that will be. We're going to join them to extend to the edge of their property so that we could pick up at a future date when the next developer next door needs some sort of service. Or if we need to go around that property to get to a different parcel, we're that much closer to a complete system. So that's, technically the address is 840 Palmer-Wasilla Highway. It's where the second entrance to Steam Commons is. There's some surveyors out there right now, but otherwise it's pretty hard to tell where that parcel is. The second developer that we're joining in with is 870 Roberts, which is the new Basil Ginger project. And they'll be going down that flag lot driveway alleyway and bringing service to the back of their property.
That answers my question as to where it's going. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Eric. You mentioned that this is being done in coordination with the developers, and that this amount of funds here is a portion of that. Is it 30%, 50%, 70%? Where are we at here?
Off the top of my head, I'd say about 30%.
Further discussion? Hearing none, is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 24-33.
Thank you. By title, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by transferring $40,878 from the Airport Equipment Fund to the Public Works Utilities Replacement Vehicle Fund for the purpose of purchasing utility fleet vehicles.
Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 24-33?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance 2433.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, Crafton will second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to adopt ordinance serial number 24-33. Is there discussion? Mr. Graham?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to get a staff report from Public Works here that would specify what vehicles are being replaced, and are they being turned out of the fleet for disposal, or are they being moved down the ladder to someone with less of a need?
Yes, thank you, through the mayor. So this request to move funding is to add funds to the utility fleet to buy a new vehicle. We have 3 new employees on the utility side, so we're facing a shortage of vehicles. The desired vehicle will address winter service through our water department. So we have a lot of sample collection and pieces that don't fit well in the back of a truck exposed to the weather. So the truck that our sampling technician currently uses would be turned over to one of our new water hires, and then an enclosed van is the preferred vehicle to have warm storage space for the different samples and the different processes that this person does year round.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 24-34 and AM number 2464 by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance serial number 2434, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by appropriating $250,000 from the general fund balance to the Train Depot Fund for continued work on Train Depot site improvements, and with it is AM number 2464, approving a contract amendment to Big Dipper Construction Incorporated in the amount of $97,800 for additional work on the Wasilla Train Depot site improvements project.
Okay, anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2434 and AM 2464?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2434 and its accompanying AM.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt ordinance serial number 24-34 and AM number 24-64. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
did have a few questions, but I would love a little bit more of an explanation as to where we're at, or maybe an update to the project. Because we got an email today, or the other day, I should say, from Ms. Nygaard about, from Eric, sorry, about where we're at with the project. Could you give us an update before I ask some questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, so through the mayor, the train depot project is extremely convoluted. It it has been many years in the making, from what I can tell, and Cassie and I have done a bunch of research on it. Mr. Giddings had the depot moved, new property was purchased, more property was received from the borough, and there have been many open task orders throughout the years. So the status of the project is, you know, we moved the depot several years ago, and then the railroad had no intention of using it. And then we said, hey, well, we'd really like you to stop blocking KGB. Could you start using the depot? And so we started that, we refreshed that relationship. There'd been some turnover at the railroad about who was kind of overseeing it. And they told us at first, no, it'd be 2 years before we use it because we need to reprint things and the public will be confused and you don't have anything out there. So we worked through several open POs to get some design, to get some survey layout, to figure out what we could show the railroad so that they would accept it. Because if you believe this or not, if you think of where the train depot building is, that deck is literally the edge of the railroad right away. So everything from the deck that you step off of to the tracks is in the railroad right away, which means it's all in their purview, and they need to approve what happens out there. And when we work out there, we have to pay a railroad inspector to make sure that nothing happens to the tracks. So we brought forward a layout that they were happy with. They had a certain dimension on how large the landing was going to be. We had pushed maybe we could get a siding, that's what we really want, and then on-grade loading where you're up, even with the train cars. They said that's not in the future for quite some time. So we worked through that. So the design came forward with the 400-foot landing and the pavement options and where the benches could be, and we backed up to where the road was on the other side of the building and said, well, we definitely know that we want good vehicular access, right? We need parking. We want buses to come someday because we know that Princess and other cruise ships use buses. So through the existing POs, we've worked up to what we have. So the plan, if the council approves this tonight, is to reach a pause point, and that's what I mentioned in my email, where we have a seemingly complete project where the public uses the new concrete plazas that we've built, the parking lot without pavement in the overflow parking, and some landscaping. And what we've been doing is working with local contractors and internally to get this complete phase. We did the striping ourselves through the roads department. We're going to bring some of the landscaping that we're going to salvage from some other projects over, but we need contractor support in adding some topsoil and getting the seeding done. So this funding request is to get us to a point where the hardscaping, the walking surfaces are basically complete. And then we can pause. And phase 2 had always envisioned waiting areas. So several outdoor structures, whether they're enclosed, I don't know, but something with a roof and some wind protection so that our visitors have somewhere to stand. That's something that I want to bring back to the council with some contractual support with the designer to say, what does the council want to do going forward? Are we to that point yet? Do we want to pause on this? What do we want to do? But the request today is to get us next spring to a point where you see grass, concrete, and some plants so that we have a good long-term pause point based on whatever the council wants to do moving forward.
Okay,
Thank you, Eric. If I could continue, Mayor.
okay.
Don't get me wrong, I love this project. I really like the idea of it. It's nice not having the train stop on KGB right there. So just to try and wrap my head around where we're at with the dollars on this one is I pulled up our budget that we approved this year, and it looked like we had approved $50,000 last year. This year we approved $63,000, but I thought I remember us having another time where we amended the budget to put some money into this project. And so now we're coming back from what it looks like another $350,000. Is that what I'm understanding? And then on top of that, I'm seeing another $1 million over the next 2 years.
We have done some appropriations where we needed to expand a contract. So we have to come back for authority to make a contract larger as through the change orders that Cassie talked about. We have had some cash infusions from CIPs over the last few years. I don't remember off the top of my head if there was another direct general funds transfer like this.
Okay. Ms. Rubio?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have a question. I can't find phase 1 and phase 2, and I know this is talking about phase 2. Do we have that?
You have the drawing for phase 1 in your packet.
In the project notes, is this like the checklist? Is that what I'm looking at?
So the drawing is in ordinance 2434. I'm sorry. Well, let's see.
I'm on page 62 of
Yeah.
725, if that helps.
Correct.
This,
Glasses to read that.
that's phase 1. So Madam Mayor, sorry, question. So this is phase 1. Where's phase 2?
So what I've done is arbitrarily separated this drawing into phase 1 and phase 2. So what I'm identifying as phase 2 are the areas that are identified as pavilion number 1 and additive alternate pavilion number 2. They're on left and right of the building, and there's a funny, weird kidney bean shaped thing in the middle, which is a drainage swale.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Eric. So we just listened to Cassie on her slide 4, said that for CIP projects, the departments will submit detailed plans with descriptions and estimated costs. And what I see here is a lack of detailed plans, and from what you've said, a real crapshoot at the detailed cost here. So we're asking for $250,000. We're saying that we're gonna spend roughly $100,000 or 97,000 some odd dollars. And then we're gonna keep this $150,000, $150,000 plus, in a fund that we can use to do whatever. I have serious heartburn with that. There is no plan that's been presented to us. There's no detailed cost. There's no bids from vendors. There's nothing here. So Madam Mayor, at this time, I would like to submit amendment number 1 to ordinance serial number 2434 to change the number 250,000 to $97,800.
Madam Mayor, I second that.
Okay. Is there discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the amendment on the floor is to change the ordinance serial number 24-34, the 250,000 to 97,800. Am I correct, Mr. Graham?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you are correct.
Thank you. So, is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So just to clarify, this would cover what you're looking to do, and this would probably be to Eric, this year. This would cover this year's plan to basically button up the project and be prepared for winter. Is that what I'm understanding, this 97,800?
It would cover the contract extension to Dipper, correct?
Madam Mayor, so just a quick question, is that completing phase 1?
So there would be very limited landscaping if this amendment passes.
Eric, would you please repeat?
extend Dipper's contract, but it would limit what phase one looks like. So there would be very limited landscaping.
Mr. Graham?
So Eric, tying together the couple of questions that we've had, number one, this would button us up for the winter. And then when you needed to continue on phase one, you would then come back and say landscaping is gonna be this much, benches are gonna be this much, so on and so forth. So this is not gonna, this is an extension of the current contract so that we can button things up for the winter where we anticipate no progress to be made on this project. Is that correct?
Yes,
Thank you.
happy to come back.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
So to clarify, Eric, we're finishing phase one of this project? Or no, we're not, that's what I'm saying, sorry, we're in phase one still, and it won't finish phase one, we will finish it potentially in the spring at this point.
Yes, so this would extend Dipper's contract to button us up for the winter, and then I would bring back more information, hopefully to button up phase one in spring with the council's approval.
The reason why I asked that is our ordinance says this is phase two, and then the 97,800 says it's phase three. And in our budget book, when I was looking today at what we were already budgeting for this year, that also says phase two. So that, I mean, that would clarify, some clarification around this as well would be really good, because
That was, I'd be happy to clarify that. So, as I mentioned, this project was chunks of a project, and Cassie was telling me this morning that the intermodal project is what kicked this whole thing off. So some of the funding was called Wasilla Downtown Intermodal Project, and it had phases. And so I would use this opportunity to explain that this is not how CIPs should be organized. So we are as confused as you are on why it didn't have one naming convention, thank you, and why it's so complicated to figure out why it was in chunks like this. So the phase two, phase three, what ends up happening is each time money was appropriated, it was given a slightly different name. And it was done over at least 5 years. And so there's these strange outliers that a really old project like the intermodal may still have a little bit of money on it, and then it may be moved by ordinance into another project. And so you get this contamination, if you will, of the naming sequence. So we won't be parsing out projects like this ever again.
follow up to that, Madam Mayor. So when you come back probably later, either this year or early next year, to get additional funds to finish up phase one for the springtime, is there something either we need to do or you can do to correct this for the future so that we don't see this line of confusion? Because again, I thought we were finishing up phase two here for a moment, and then I'm seeing, oh, look, we're going into phase three, and you're saying, nope, we're not even done with phase one yet, so.
We agree very much so. We'll have detailed explanation of what's done, what we're proposing. And Cassie and I are working very closely to improve our CIP process so that, I guess, since I have the mic, our code talks about a 5-year CIP process. I haven't seen that put together in the last 4 or 5 years. And I guess I want to prepare the council. That's going to look extremely expensive because what you show is fiscal year 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. They all add up. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. And so the most current fiscal year is going to be, what we have to make budget match, but we also have to show that we have hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure we need to plan for, and that takes grit. That takes understanding that we need to have a plan to be ready to recapitalize the sewer treatment plant, that sort of thing. So I'll get off my soapbox, but
Okay.
we will bring it
Thank you.
forward so that you can see the future.
Okay, let's go back to the motion, and this is for the amendment. So, is there objection to the motion? Yes, please.
So the motion before the council right now is a primary amendment. It's to ordinance serial number 2434, and it strikes 250 and inserts in its place 97.8.
Okay, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Now we go to the main motion as amended, which is to adopt ordinance serial number 2434 as amended, and AM number 2464 as not amended.
Okay. Is there discussion? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Eric, do you have accounting so far of what we've spent on this project? I mean, basically, we're going over by $100,000 at this point and anticipating to go over by $250,000. Do you have an idea of what we've spent so far this year on this project? And if you don't, that's okay. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get things square in my head here.
I don't.
He can get back to you, Mr. Graham. 'cause
That'd be
he
great.
don't.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr.
just maybe a question for our clerk. Do we need to clarify in the amendment or in the documentation about what phase this is at all? Or should we? Since it says phase 2 and phase 3.
I mean, we'll do our best to make the record as clean as we can. We may also do that through the minutes. So let me get a little better, but yes, we will make the record as clean as possible.
Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, I just want to add one little comment. Next year, Eric, when you bring this back, don't forget the trolley. Madam Clerk, please read ordinance serial number 24-35 and AM number 2465 by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by transferring $26,798 from the three existing funds to the Public Works Sewer Vac Pumper Fund for the purpose of purchasing a replacement sewer vac truck, and with it is AM number 2465, contract award to BSI Equipment for the purchase of a vacuum excavator truck for $569,882.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 24-35 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 24-35 and AM number 2465?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2435 and its accompanying AM.
Is there a second?
Cottle seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Cottle to adopt ordinance serial number 24-35 and AM number 24-65. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I see Eric's already picked up the microphone here on this one. If I could, Eric, could you give us a little bit of explanation as to what's happened to the previous one? I mean, I get it's a 1986 one. I remember we were talking about these ones. I feel like it was just the last meeting here. Could you talk about what's happened to the previous one that we need to replace it?
Yeah, so it has met the end of its operational life. It has multiple failures, and it's not financially wise to try to keep it running when we haven't been able to use it in the last 5 years, is my understanding. So it's basically sitting in cold storage in the utility building, unusable because of oil leaks and other issues.
follow-up to that, Madam Mayor.
Yes?
So it sounds like we kind of knew that this truck was dead. I looked through our capital improvement budget. I don't recall seeing us forecasting the replacement of this one. I did see last year we had, I believe it was 350,000 in the budget for a pumper truck is what I saw in there. And I couldn't remember what we were doing with that one. But again, this year I looked through both Public Works and sewer, because this was a sewer truck, and couldn't find anything on us estimating that we were gonna need to spend $570,000 on this, when it sounded like this truck, we knew we were gonna probably need one, it sounded like.
Yes. Cassie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is in the capital budget because we're just transferring enough to cover the cost inflation over the last few years. We had forecast. If I look at my understanding on our the source of the funds was an existing account.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I do recall that we did, during the year of COVID, or perhaps it was the year before COVID, we looked at this, at the need for this, and made some sort of appropriation. I don't remember what it was, but it has been sitting for a while. So it wasn't in last year's budget. You are correct, Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
this is Madam Eric. Eric, but you were saying that the old one from '86 has pretty much been dead in the water. What have we been doing? So if we really need to have, is it just work that's being done, or are we using different equipment? So just to make sure this is really necessary, or can you just kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you for that question through the mayor. So we have deferred projects that we just didn't have the resources for. We have paired up with the roads department when they have availability to help us. They have a larger version of this. We haven't tackled some of the projects that we needed to since it went down. So the other thing that we do use sometimes are the septic trucks, and they are not designed for this. So we have clogging issues, and we end up creating more problems for ourselves when we try that, but in a pinch, we have relied on those and regretted it. So this is something that we haven't dealt with in a few years like we should have, and so we'll be very happy to be able to get that versatility back by purchasing this.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Rubio?
Thank you. So have we looked to subcontract this out and what that would be?
We basically subcontract within the division if we have to, so we have roads come along. We have not had success with like Anchorage-based groups. That if we needed a pumper truck, we've had to have Anchorage come out and help us. Dipper subcontracts with us when they need a Vector truck. So,
Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions. Number one, expected delivery of this is this fiscal year, and number two, expected life or useful life of this vehicle.
through the mayor, so the first question, the vehicle's built to spec, so we'd be looking at several months, if not 6 months or more, till we get it. There's options that are outlined on page 71 about the different body and the shipping to add parts to it. It's a big version of what the police department goes through, where they pick components and have them added. Lifespan, at least, well, I guess finance would kind of, depreciate it for at least 10 years. But we have a very good history of having vehicles much longer than that. So working lifespan of 15 years is my estimate.
Okay, is there further discussion? Hearing none, Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. We are now at persons to be heard. It's a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Okay, the first one is Brian Sand. You have 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me talk here. I am here in reference to ordinance 2420.
I'm sorry, please state your name for the record.
Brian Sand. So like I said, I'm here in reference to ordinance 2423. I know it's not on the agenda today. This was brought up back in July 22nd during a regular meeting then, and then kicked over to the Planning Department or Commission to get their opinion on the ordinance. The issue I have with this ordinance is when it comes to the attendance portion of it, it says that you have to be physically at any of the commission meetings to count for the attendance. If you're not physically there for more than half, you could be removed, or you will be removed. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly, but it does not allow teleconference to count. So even if you call in, it says that doesn't count, even if it's planned or otherwise. My issue with that is I work on the slope, and then you have people that do seasonal construction or remote work where they might go out to the villages or whatever, where they might miss meetings. And the way I look at it is we have at least for my references, the Planning Commission has vacancies right now that, you know, I would like to maybe be a part on, but working on the slope, I have a set 2 and 2 schedule that sometimes goes to 3 or 4 weeks on the slope, just depending on need. And as referenced earlier, I mean, there's working issues all for staffing all over the state. But to have it where you can't call in and make it count when I would already be minimum of half the meetings gone, makes it where if I miss one meeting or call in that I would normally be here for, I would be taken off there potentially if I was on that commission or any of the commissions. I honestly haven't looked to see if you guys as council members are required to also be here physically for more than half, or if that's where it kind of came from for inspiration. But, you know, when you're wanting people to be involved, and it's not just slope workers, like I said, there's a lot of people that work in the trades, et cetera, that are basically being told, we don't want you on the council, we pass this, in my opinion, the way I look at it. So that's kind of my 2 cents, and like I said, I know it's not on the agenda, but I think it's coming up potentially here soon because the Planning Commission just gave their opinion back, so it might be coming up in the next meeting when I'm at work where I can't call in either to speak on it. So that's why I'm here now today, to kind of bring some attention to an issue that I see that I don't think it was on purpose by any means to exclude people in those trades or that kind of style of work, but it definitely does. So just something to think of. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicky Feo. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Vicky Feo, and I was here at your last council meeting because nothing is getting done. It's been almost 6 months since we submitted an actual complaint for code violations in our neighborhood. The code compliance officer went out. He established that they had been violated. He issued citations. He issued 3 land use code violations that total a $900 a day fine since July 3rd. No money's been collected. In our subdivision, there's probably 20 houses on a 1,000-foot road that's a dead end. The lots are 100 feet wide. I brought some pictures to display the ignorance that our neighbor has. Anyway, some of the stuff that we've had to deal with because of the city's inaction throughout the summer. If I would go to a meeting in the planning department, I would come home and Bradley, the tenant who is basing his construction business, from 900 Selena, which is an R1 lot, would have moved either his side-by-side right beside my fence. This is how close the houses are. Or he would have moved his camp trailer right up against the fence. This is what he did after we had our meeting with you. That very night, we had out-of-state company for dinner. He does this, and he's waving at our company like he's got it in the bag. He's good. So anyway, you have to understand that something has got to be done. There is so many code violations right there. The tenant in the apartment lied to the code compliance officer when he did the investigation. The apartment is illegal. It has been illegal according to the planning officer since 2017, I believe. Our property rights are being violated by the city's dereliction of duty that has caused duress and stress to our family. Since the city has failed to correct violations that affect our property rights after advice, the city owes us the penalty fine of $900 a day since July 3rd until corrections are made. We have been harmed by adjacent activity in an R1 zone by the city inaction to correct zoning violations, thus devaluing our property. Lakefront R1 property in the city is very valuable. And I'll be glad to share these pictures with you guys if you want.
Mr. John Feo, please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm going to just go over some things that Vicki had just mentioned.
Would you please state your name for the record?
John Feo. The other half of Vicki. Anyway, I've been living in Wasilla for almost 35 years, at Lake Lucille, at Selena Lane, at 924. This subdivision used to be a quiet subdivision, is the way it's zoned. The last 4 years have been hell. We have been to everybody with our complaint. The complaint was pursued, it was stated, the I's dotted, the T's crossed. They served the code violations. Like Vicki says, nothing has been done. It seems like these guys have got an inside line with somebody here at the city. Every time we make a move, they're right on top of that move that we made, and they're getting input, guidance, totally against us. Nothing's been done. We've kept coming back. Things are going through the attorney. We haven't heard nothing from the attorney. This has been ongoing, ongoing, and ongoing over various issues of the land use stuff. And like Vicki says, she's presented pictures. That's just a sample of what's been going on. We have a property value there that's been deteriorated by the basis of this 900 West Selena property. These guys have done nothing in the 4 years they've been there but run it to the ground and create our life, make our life miserable. So I hope the city council can accept the responsibility to deliberate on our subject, on this impact to the R1 Lake residents, and show me some results, because nothing is getting done. And I think enough is enough. I've been under 4 years of hell. And you're allowing these 3 guys, the owner's not even in town half the time. Well, he is in town some of the time, gone part of the time. You guys are operating totally with his tenants, from what I understand. I don't believe he's been into the city council here once himself, the owner, Josh Gross. So that's all I had to say. I would please ask the city to act on our behalf, and let's get somewhere with this. This is a quiet neighborhood. It's R1. R2 isn't much different. It's agriculture, no heavy equipment. The guy that's in there now doesn't own any property, he's running a business out of there. And it's come and go, come and go. And infractions like this with pictures that Vicki showed you. Thank you for your time.
Sharon Johnson for Senator Wilson. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Ledford and City Council members. I'm going to jump the gun before you certify the election and congratulate the two council persons who ran, and thank you for your service, because that's a lot of hours you all put in, and it's greatly appreciated. First of all, on Wednesday, October 16th, from 5:30 to 8 p.m., Senator Wilson, we want to make sure everyone's aware that I gotta get this correct. The State Department of Agriculture is holding a listening session on the South Central Slaughterhouse closure. The listening session will be available in person or on Zoom. And the purpose is to seek input on the impacts of this closure on the livestock industry and seeking direction and remedy, which will be shared with their administration. So that is this Wednesday from 5:30 to 8 o'clock, and it is Zoom or in person. Also, there will be an open house on Wednesday, November 6th from 5:30 to 7:30 at Matsu Career and Technical High School regarding the Bogart-Selden Road Corridor Access Planning. The public will be able to view the plan, ask questions, provide comments. The plan is on the borough website presently, and everything will be at the Matsu Career Tech High School for its viewing. Public comment is available October 9th through December 3rd, 2024. And both of these are listed on Senator Wilson's Facebook website. Also, I brought copies. And I want to thank you, as always, for giving us time to talk, and our office is open. And if anybody needs anything, give us a call. We're located over at the Legislative Information Office. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Diana Michelson. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm here under unfinished business about zoning and I live in a rural residential, what you guys call rural residential. I call it a neighborhood, paved street, paved yards, decent houses, not multi-million-dollar houses, but we're a neighborhood. We all been there 20 plus years. I've been there 21 years. You have permitted a neighbor right next to me to allow them to have permits to have farm animals brought into the neighborhood. We originally started with 3 rabbits. They no longer wanted to care for them, released them into the neighborhood. We now have holes by our foundation. We have a meat in our gardens. Now they're permitted, they've modified their permit. They're permitted now. They have ducks, they have chickens, they had geese, roosters, but planning came out and told them they couldn't have those. For 2 years in a row, I had to complain to get rid of the roosters and the geese they're not allowed to have. They were told for 2 years in a row they weren't allowed to have. They now have goats, and they brought in a sheep the other day. So this is a neighborhood. These animals are being held and I'll show you pictures of pellet housing. This is what I look out of my backyard now, out of all my windows, and this is right off my front porch, in my back porch. They're now building a barn right off my front door. They've come in and modified their permit. Nobody from the city comes out and looks to see if this should be farmland. They leave these animals on our bluff, which is a waterway underneath, which has the creek underneath. This is leaching into our water. Who's gonna pay for the nitrate and E. coli water tests that need to be done, the treatments for 3 days, and another water test at $200 a piece? Who's gonna take care of those? Right now, I'm a renter of 21 years. My landlord is with me. She has medical issues. She can't talk right now. But the property value of that home, and is she gonna pay now on a fixed income to have these water tested because you guys have allowed these animals in? No one's tested, nobody's checked this property, nobody's looked to even see if this is a neighborhood. There's been complaints for 2 years on this property on their website where your city or everybody at the clerks tells us, put it on the website, make complaints, do all of this. There is 2 years of them. Nobody's responded to them. Not one person. They're open tickets still on the thing. And nobody's bothered to come out and check or even call me back. So I'd like you guys to consider what it's doing to neighborhoods when you allow these. They just modified their permit to allow more animals. Not one person has come out and looked at this property of our neighborhood. This is a neighborhood where we walk our dogs in the summer. I've been there 21 years. The rest of them have been there 20, 30, 40 years. Since this isn't farmland. We walk around, we meet with our neighbors, they come over for the holidays. It's a neighborhood. I'll submit these pictures to you, thank you.
Okay. That closes persons to be heard. We are moving on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for approval under the consent agenda by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have the regular meeting minutes of September 9th, 2024. Introductions, recommended public hearing on October 28th, 2024. The first is ordinance serial number 2436, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by accepting and appropriating a state of Alaska legislative grant in the amount of $750,000 for water and wastewater systems upgrades, 25 DC 041. Second is ordinance serial number 2437, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by accepting and appropriating a state of Alaska legislative grant in the amount of $750,000 for water and wastewater system upgrades. That's 25 DC 088. Ordinance serial number 2438, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget by accepting and appropriating an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, a JAG grant, in the amount not to exceed $144,600 for the purpose of one multi-jurisdictional drug task force investigator position at the Wasilla Police Department for assignment to the statewide drug enforcement unit. We have one resolution left on the consent agenda. That's resolution serial number 2410, authorizing the mayor or mayor's designee to execute a professional services agreement with Matanuska Telephone Association, offering naming rights and advertising at the Curtis D. Menard Memorial Sports Center for $162,500 over a 3-year term. And 3 action memorandums on the consent agenda. The first is AM number 2461, confirmation of mayoral appointment of K. Darlene Langell to the Planning Commission. AM number 2462, a contract award to East Fork Construction LLC in the amount of $299,046 for the Wasilla Airport fence improvement. And lastly, AM number 2463, contract award to Swickard Alaska 2 LLC in the amount of $217,340 for the purchase of 4 2025 police package Chevrolet Tahoes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Madam Mayor, I move the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We are now at unfinished business. Oh, are we at new business?
No, new first, and then unfinished is Title 6.
Oh, sorry. We are now at new business. Madam Clerk, please read resolution serial number 2412 by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution serial number 2412, certifying the results of the October 1st, 2024 regular election.
Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 2412?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2412.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Graham to adopt resolution serial number 2412. Is there discussion?
I'm trying to find number 12 now, Madam Mayor. Is this supposed to be 2411?
No.
No. Resolution serial number 2412 is under new business.
H711.
It's certifying the result of the October 1st, 2024 election.
It's a long day.
Okay, is there a discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. So welcome, Mr. Graham and Ms. Cotton. Okay. Now, Jamie, you've got a big list. Yeah.
So next, under new business, if there's no objection, we're gonna take these in order that they were pulled. So next would be resolution serial number 2409, authorizing the transfer of funds within an accounting fund in the amount of $60,000 from general fund, general government administration, mayor, to general fund, general government, deputy administrator.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 24-09?
Madam Mayor, I move resolution serial number 2409.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt resolution 24-09. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Mostly just kind of a question or just something we could ask for next year's budget. I remember Mr. Graham had asked us to pull the budget item or line item for the lobbyist out of capital budget, move it under the mayor, and then after this, I understand it's more something that our deputy administrator deals with. Are we going to see going forward that this item will now be under our deputy administrator now that we've kind of clarified it and worked it out, let it shaken out a little bit here?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping to see. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Next is resolution serial number 2411, establishing the calendar year 2025 legislative priorities.
Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 24-11?
Madam Mayor, I move resolution serial number 2411.
Is there a second?
Cottle seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Cottle to adopt resolution serial number 2411. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. This was something, of course, it is a pretty important document to us. This is setting forth some of the things that we hold pretty important that we're going to ask our legislature for this coming year. I wanted to get a little bit of a summary from I believe our deputy administrator, Ms. Nygaard, is the one that usually helps draft this. Could we get a little bit, looking at it, it looked very similar to last year's. Could you walk us through either just some of your thoughts on why some of these are staying here or why we haven't taken off some? Because it looks like some of these we might have are getting funding from, as well as what's been added.
Thank you, Chair, through the mayor. Yeah, so you heard from our lobbyist early on about some of the landscape and funding options that we have. And so we consolidated our federal and our state into one document to make it the most efficient. And then I have been working very closely with Public Works to address most of the capital projects and the appropriation and the grants to update the legislators on what additional funding we're gonna need for those projects. And this was somewhat of a tight deadline because the borough, as you probably know, has invited the legislature and the cities to share their priorities the first week of November. And so that's why this document comes before you a little bit ahead of schedule. So it's broke down between the beneficial legislations, which are the bigger conversations like PERS and TERS, supporting the STIP and the MPO, supporting the Kinnick Goose Bay project, supporting the local infrastructure of the airport runway, supporting regional water and wastewater expansion projects. We did add a new one this year because in conversation with the borough, centralizing emergency services, or at least having the opportunity that supports local governments enacting a shared service model, and then also at the request of the borough and the city is to amend the state law to allow the expenditures of the E91 surcharge revenue to support a broader range of emergency communication network. And this is the funds that would allow the expenses associated with call takers and dispatchers. Right now, it's just call takers. So this was a collaborative piece of legislation that we put in to emulate what the borough and our sister cities doing. The capital projects, like I mentioned, are a reiteration of last year, continuing to support the water, the wastewater, the airport expansion, the MS4 project, which is your compliance for stormwater, the updating our comp plan, sludge management. As you know, we had an appropriation that came from Murkowski's office for $5 million that were specific to that, but that's not all. The sewer tank legacy replacement project, that is replacing the septic tanks around Lake Lucille, the railroad depot revitalization, the airport aviation training center, or what we call the business center out there, to provide some accommodations to the aviation customers. The airport alternative fee, that's the expansion of the power out to the airport, because it stops right now. It needs to go all the way down, including water expansion. We asked for the interconnect, additional support of the interconnect as we look at what is the future once that connection happens. The last two have been on our priority list for a while, and that has to do with the citywide walkability and parking and traffic. That's more of a planning request. We did add a business climate analysis. The reason being that's something that you're seeing the city of Kodiak, the city of Cordova have done those, which are more post-COVID economic indicators. It's something that EDA has been funding cities in their effort to understand how their economies are growing. And then the last one is for food security. And so that would fall under our capital projects. And then the last section is the appropriation and grants. So that would be the DEC grant that our lobbyist was referring to for updating our master water and sewer plan. That also is, they have programs specific to tank replacement. And so those would be grants that would come through. We also added the playground upgrades because there are new codes now for playground equipment. And the sports center and the Life 2.0, been working with Scott on that to better understand what improvements need to go on. So if you have any comments, suggestions, this is a document that we want to represent the entire city, but we did not want to miss the train that was departing when all the legislatures meet, to make sure we have a seat at the table.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Ms. Rubio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So do we have the capacity for more grant money?
I always look at finance because there is a certain amount of back-end infrastructure to manage these grants, and I think it depends on the agency that grants us the money.
Yeah, through the mayor, Ms. Rubio, exactly. It depends on who is awarding us the funding. Currently, right now, if you ask me for more money from EPA, that they require a lot of requirements within our department in regards to purchasing a loan. All contracts have to be approved. Once they are approved by council, they have to be approved by the EPA, which takes anywhere from about 4 to 6 weeks before they will approve them. And once that's complete, then they require constant, about weekly updates from financial and from other parts of that. And then their financial reimbursement that we have to go through is roughly about a 17-page document, the last I looked at it. And so they do require a lot of reporting and a lot of paperwork for us. But from FAA, we've received roughly about, I think 8 million, I think is roughly, maybe a little more or less on them. And they are a lot easier to work with, and they are a lot accommodating to what we need and how we work and things of that nature. So a lot of it is dependent upon who we are getting our granting funding from. Obviously, if you're asking in regards to project management and things of that nature, then I have to turn to that edge and say to Public Works whether or not they have the staff to manage those contracts and those projects, because there's only so many people that can handle that side of it also on the other end. So there's kind of a twofold variable that happens in regards to how much any of us can handle with the staff we currently have and continue on with the normal day-to-day operations of operations of the city, just in regards to normal sales tax and utilities and things of that nature.
If I can, Madam Mayor, one more question, unless you wanted to talk first. So how much grant money do we have in play right now?
I believe last time I checked on, actually been appropriated and approved through the council, I would say roughly about 23 million through state and federal and local. 17 million of that is from the federal government. So.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So earlier we had our lobbyist, Chris Miles, telling us that there's not enough contractors to do the work that's out there and that there's money for it. Okay, and we're asking for, another 50 million, roughly, actually more than that, about 60 million, for some of which are projects where we would need to have contractors do the work. So Eric, in your opinion, if we get these grants, $23 million and $17 million, are we going to be able to find local contractors to do that? Is the workforce capable of supporting this amount of work?
Well, I would say that, as Chris said, it's a contractor's market out there. I think one way to look at this document is that it needs to be able to go in front of local, state, and federal representatives. Remember last year we had 3 copies, and Chris's advice was not to have 3 versions. So you see some large ticket requests, you see some smaller ones. The idea is to have a document that our different representatives can look at and say, oh, I know of a program that I can help you with that. So for the big ticket projects, they will take long enough to get consultants on board, to get a design, to get a contractor, that I don't think we'll run into what I think Chris talked about too, how the port didn't have a contractor's bid on their last $600 million project. We're not in that bidding environment, in my opinion. We'll be able to get contractors to look at these projects because we will not have such gigantic projects that it's, one outfit on the West Coast that can provide what we need.
Mr. Gray?
And the second question, this is not for you, Eric, you can rest your voice for a minute. This is for Crystal and the mayor here. I don't see anything on here about supporting legislative change to the alcohol control regulations to give us more control, local control over package store licensing. I do see something on here, to talk about, food security. Well, Costco said they're not coming to town. They're not bringing their $12 million inventory if they can't have a package license. So I think we need to continue to have that on here, even though it may not be legislatively palatable this session, but I think we need to continue to have it on as one of our legislative priorities.
That was just an oversight, trust me.
Okay, so can you make an amendment to that or do it? Can the mayor just say, we'll add something on there, or do we have to do something for the council?
No, you've got to do a motion.
Okay, Madam Mayor, and Madam Clerk. I propose a primary amendment to Resolution Serial 2411 to add a bullet under beneficial legislation, which would be approximately line 47, a new line 47 or 46A, to amend state law to provide for local control of liquor package licensing, or whatever the appropriate term is.
Whatever the appropriate term is.
Which Scribner's choice there.
Yes. For package.
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 Liquor package
liquor
store
package
licensing.
store. Okay, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Local
We
control.
we want to be able to have a full pour.
Second.
Okay. Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to add to our legislative priorities, the local control for liquor
Liquor
package
package
store
licensing and full pour.
full pour, ever what they call that.
They're separate, full pour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there discussion? Is there objection to the motion? Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Administrator.
Madam Mayor?
Good catch, Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the items I didn't see on here is something relating to the major issues we're having with Parks Highway. This is something, I brought up here recently with the Parks Highway, is working on our traffic problems. From what I understand, the current bypass project is essentially dead in the water where it stands right now. Did we have something in mind to continue trying to push forward on some of those traffic issues that we're starting to see and some of the safety issues that we're starting to see that might have gotten missed with this one?
Mr. Crafton, talking to Ryan Anderson, the Commissioner of DOT, they're pushing through Selden all the way up to Pittman, and you'll go off of Trunk and go up, and then they are going to start, I'm not sure of what year it is, but they're going to redo Fairview Loop. So that is going to, and then also, I think it's next year, they're putting through, Herman Road from Parks over to Palmer Wasilla. So that's gonna help alleviate some. And I've been pushing for them to close that entrance down there next to Metcom, because the only reason that's there is when the WPD was in that building. And so that needs to be closed, and that will give a longer lane turning left onto the connector.
So exactly what I brought up.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Last
I mean,
time.
I've been talking to Ryan Anderson for 2 years now about that.
People have brought up the Herman Road one. I'm not sure how that's gonna solve anything because it still brings us to the same intersection. All you're doing is taking a longer detour around the Parks Highway. There's not much there, but part of what I know Eric and I have discussed around this one is basically the entire corridor from essentially the Lowe's area down to Palmer Wasilla and Parks Highway intersection right there. Not only is it a traffic problem with when it comes to just the time it takes to get through there, but also a safety problem. And being as it's a it's a state-owned road, I feel like continuing to at least prioritize how important the Parks Highway through the city of Wasilla is. There should be something in here, I would say, that at least ensures that we say, hey, don't forget about this area as well. Because again, I know Mr. Graham, whenever he had made some comments around Bogard, Selden area being a very important asset to the bypass of Wasilla versus going the southern corridor many years ago. The northern area was a little bit more important. But I'd still like to see something in here.
Okay, then make a motion.
Can I have a 5-minute at ease chat with our deputy administrator and our public works about this?
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute at ease.
Agenda. Thank you. My agenda moved it away from me.
About line 94.
Thank you. That states a continued effort around safety and traffic mitigation in regards to the Parks Highway through Wasilla.
Can you repeat that, please, sir?
Yes.
A continued effort around traffic and safety.
Safety and traffic.
Traffic and safety or safety and traffic?
Safety and traffic.
Hold on.
Eric told me to put that first.
Okay.
Mitigation.
Whoa, hang on.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the Parks Highway through Wasilla. Or City of Wasilla, I should say.
Okay. The motion has been made by Councilperson Crafton. Is there a second?
All seconds.
All right. Motion's been made by Crafton and seconded by Councilperson Cottle. Is there discussion? Mr. Graham?
I just have one question. Could somebody define mitigation, exactly what that would entail or what that might entail? I mean, I understand the safety aspect, but mitigation, are we trying to reduce the number of cars? Are we trying to improve the flow? What is it that mitigation means in this case?
I think the intent would be congestion, I guess would be maybe a better word behind it. But to improve traffic or limit traffic congestion is really the idea behind mitigating the traffic in any fashion.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none? Is,
Can I just,
Yes.
I apologize, I made a mistake. That would actually be under approximately line 47. That's gonna follow the amendment by Councilmember Graham, just so everybody's clear.
okay. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Madam Clerk. 2411 was the last one that we just did.
So we're back to the main motion, so they need to vote on 2411 as adopted.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're back to the main motion. And that is
2411 as adopted, resolution.
2411 as adopted.
I'm sorry, amended.
Amended. Been here too long today. Anyway, is there further discussion on it? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, 2411 is adopted. Okay, Madam Clerk, what's next?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lastly, before unfinished business is AM number 2466, contract award to Confluent Strategies Incorporated in the amount of $59,000 for municipal lobbyist services.
Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 24-66?
Madam Mayor, I
Or
move
AM.
AM 2466.
Sorry. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move AM 2466.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
Is there discussion? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So when we when I say we, the city decided to first hire a lobbyist, I was not in favor of that because I was used to, Mayor Cottle pretty much was our lobbyist at that time. And the current administration, that's not essentially their wheelhouse. They're busy doing other things and doing a nice job of it. And because of that, Chris has been our lobbyist for a couple of years now, and he's done a very nice job. I was still pretty skeptical the first year, but now that the second year is coming through to an end, I've seen Chris be able to get a lot of things done, get a lot of doors open that I know that we as council members or even through AML would have, when I say AML, that's Alaska Municipal League, would have issues with. So I fully support continuing to have the lobbyist for this next year, and we'll vote in favor of AM 2466.
Further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will have to say as well, I really appreciated Chris coming down here today and speaking to us. In all honesty, I'd probably say my opinion of moving forward with the lobbyist has changed after hearing from him, and I actually even made a call to our Senator Wilson and talked to him about him as well, so he got his input on how he's been handling basically getting business done for us down there. And it was really funny. He said, Ian, I actually just hung up the phone with Chris. He was calling me about your meeting tonight and just getting a feel of what I thought would be some insight to bring forward to you guys tonight. So I would say I really appreciate having this lobbyist now. Like Mr. Graham said, at first I was a member of the audience when they first passed this, and I liked the idea of the mayor and our deputy administrator doing it as well. But again, everybody has their strengths. Everybody, and this, you just found you do better at other things, and so it's better to bring somebody forward that can do an even better and more stellar job for you. So I am all for keeping our lobbyist.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Cottle?
The only comment I have right at the moment is I've been here with the council since the end of March. This is the first time that I have seen or heard anything from our lobbyist, and I would personally just like to have reporting from him a little more often.
Okay. I can tell you, don't look for him during session.
But an email.
Maybe an update after session.
Yeah. He don't have a problem with that because he's a Valley boy. Just so you know, he graduated from Colony High School. Anyway, further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, Madam Clerk, where are we now?
Unfinished business.
Okay, we are at unfinished business. Madam Clerk, please read the item by title.
Thank you. This is a discussion, consideration, and possible action on the draft rewrite of Wasilla Municipal Code Title 16, Land Development Code, that repeals and reenacts Title 16 to substantially change the uses permitted in each zoning district, the review, enforcement, and permitting procedures, the planned unit development, landscaping, parking, conditional use and variance procedures, and the design standards imposed in the city of Wasilla.
Okay, council, before we continue, it is now basically 8:30. Do you want to start on Title 16? Or would you like to postpone till the 28th?
Madam Mayor, I probably would be in favor of postponing. I mean, I know we generally like to try and call these meetings around the 9-ish mark, because even after we call, or wrap up with Title 16. It still takes us another half an hour or so to get out of here. Probably not the time to do it, but my concern is I'm looking at the calendar and I know after today, we only have 3 more regular meetings for the year, and I believe one of them we actually tentatively cancel, or might cancel because of AML, if I recall, I can't remember. But anyways, I know we might have an opportunity for a special meeting in this situation. So I would just throw that thought out to the council.
Through the chair to the council, I've kind of been hearing requests for maybe a special meeting to just tackle Title 16. And so I do have a proposed date. I would ask for a motion, but I'm not sure how October 30th looks for the body. And then I thought a 1 o'clock start time. And there's no, we can take a little pause here and even check your schedules. But that is the first available date that Madam Attorney is available.
When you say 1 o'clock start time for a 3-hour meeting, 4-hour meeting, what would Madam Attorney think is appropriate?
I think we should, I mean, any amount of time would be, of course, I can be available for any amount of time, but it would be great to get through the rest of Title 16. I don't know if that's fully realistic, but I think we would have a good shot if we had at least 3 hours. If we have 2 hours, I think we might make it. If we have, if we're talking about 1 hour, I think we'll get through landscaping and maybe permitting and so Division 5, component of Division 5, which would make that's a lot of progress. So it depends on what council's availability is and how far we want to go.
I wouldn't object to a 4-hour meeting on that date.
1 to 5.
Ms. Rubio,
I do work.
I know
so
you do.
I have a conflict.
I'm up for starting at 1 and going until we're done, honestly. If I'm gonna clear my schedule for that type of time frame, I'll be here as long as it takes that day, within reason.
I think we should wait till we hear from Councilmember Johnson, since he's not able to be here tonight. We definitely want full council if we're gonna have a special meeting.
Nikki,
Yeah, what day was that meeting proposed?
the 30th of October.
Oh, okay.
It's on a Wednesday.
That's on a Wednesday. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll see what everyone else thinks. I work too. But maybe if I know ahead of arrange something. So, waiting for what the council thinks about it.
Through the chair to the council, we could do a 6 o'clock or 5:30 if that works. We don't have to start at 1. That was just an idea.
I could definitely do that.
I'm sorry?
I said I could definitely do that on a Wednesday, like have it start at 5:30 or something.
I think if we're gonna do a long meeting, we should look at a Saturday, or I have no objection even to a Sunday meeting, even though I know that's outside the norm, but I mean, a long meeting like that, there's a lot of schedules have to be moved around to accommodate a 4-hour
Right.
meeting.
How about Friday, November 1st?
And if you want to do 2 meetings, 2 hours each, I think that'll get us the same place. You can do a 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. meeting, one special meeting, and 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. On November. I mean, I can, any of that works for me. I don't know, for presentation purposes.
6 to 8 on Wednesday.
No, which find it. So I was drunk. Through the chair to the council, Councilmember Rubio is out of town the 30th through the 6th. How would the council feel if I went back to our old way, I sent out an email, and if everybody was available, or I called you, would you give me the authority to schedule the meetings based on your schedule? Without coming back to ask.
Yes, because I think it's important everyone is there. We've worked this hard on it, you guys.
I agree to that.
Ms. Holly, should there be a motion?
I think a motion to direct the clerk to schedule, were we talking 2 meetings? I think I got a little bit lost in the conversation, or just finding a better time for the one
Special
meeting?
meeting and then one special meeting and then handle the rest of the regular meeting.
Okay, so I think just a
So the
motion
20
from council directing the clerk to schedule a special meeting for council based on availability identified after.
So the 28th, you're gonna try to work, we'll try to work on it a couple of hours. And then the 30th, or when, or she's gonna find out. Okay, got it.
So I'm gonna contact you. So the motion is to authorize the clerk, direct the clerk to contact the council to schedule a special meeting for 4 hours on a date that's available that the entire body can agree upon.
I thought we were talking about having 2 hours at a regular meeting and then a special meeting of 2 hours, an even, special evening meeting of 2 hours.
Okay,
Is that-
so a 2-hour special meeting.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
Okay. Does that work?
And if we could ask the administration to kind of minimize the agenda on the 28th, since we're gonna give the attorney 2 hours.
Well, let's see, we will try, but we just introduced, well, I don't think those are very controversial. We know we'll have 3 public hearings. I don't know what everybody else has.
See Cassie hiding over there.
We will tell you after agenda setting, tomorrow?
And then we'll swear you in also on the 28th. So I wanted to have cake, and
I get sworn at every day, so it's.
we were gonna have a little cake. So, okay, so the motion before the body is to direct the clerk to contact the council directly to schedule a 2-hour special meeting that works for the entire group. And I'm gonna also, that if one council member says, you know what, my schedule is so full, go on without me, I'm gonna go on without them. Is that okay? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I make the motion the clerk just read.
What the clerk said.
Yep.
Is there a
second that.
second? The motion's been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay. So, where are we at now?
Madam Mayor, I move to amend the agenda to delete item 9.1.
Is there a second?
Mayor, I'll second that.
It has been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to amend the agenda, striking 9.1. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, it passes. Okay. We are to communications. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One item under communications this evening, it's Planning Commission meeting minutes, September 24, 2024.
Okay, we are now on to audience comments, which is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Additionally, over the last year, the city of Wasilla has routinely had members of the public attend and read excerpts from novels, some of which involve sexual content and/or descriptions of incest or domestic violence that are not intended for children under the age of 14 or may be triggering to listeners and viewers based upon their past experiences. For those of you with young children viewing or listening to this meeting, or who may be triggered by the description of incest or domestic violence, please be aware we are now entering public comment, and you may want to mute the video or temporarily exit the meeting. We will notify the public when the public comment has ended and council is moving on to the next item on the agenda. For those of you participating in public comment tonight, I respectfully ask you to remember that our attendees, viewers, and listeners may be under the age of 14 or victims of domestic violence and are not choosing to read the passages that you are choosing to read to them. The audience comment is now open. If you are going to testify, you have 3 minutes. Please begin by stating your first and last name, and if you're a city resident.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Jackie Goforth. I'm a resident of the Matsu Borough. The age of 14 to 17 for young adult was an invention of the publishing industry. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And while we've been asleep or not looking, they've changed it. The new designation for young adult is 12 to 18. So the disclaimer that's being read needs to get changed because the 14 doesn't exist anywhere but in the publishing range, and now they're saying that books like this are aimed for 12 to 18-year-olds. 12. That's a 6th grader. Now, I wrote you all, and I said I was going to address Anne Frank's diary, the graphic edition, because I have been doing a lot of research on this. And I want you to know that copyright is life plus 70. That means once a person dies, what they've written goes into the public domain after 70 years, and there's 3 reasons why you can get extended to 95, and that is if it's anonymous, if it's written under a pseudonym, or if somebody paid them to write it. Mein Kampf came out in 2016, January 1st, because Adolf died in 1945. Anne Frank's died in 1945, and this book did come out of copyright in several different countries, including Poland. Now, the Anne Frank's Foundation in Basel, Switzerland, has tried to extend that, and they have filed a lawsuit now saying that Otto Franks was a co-writer, and they now want the copyright extended till 2050 because he died in 1980. And the French are fighting that because they say you can't say your entire life that you didn't touch the diary or write on it and then call yourself a co-writer. So it's kind of a mucky situation. But this one was based on what they say was found diary pages that had pieces of paper glued on them. And in 2016, a Danish, no, it wasn't Danish, Holland, lab looked through the paper and managed to get information off of there that matched what's in this book now. So they're saying that Anne Frank really did write the passages that are sexualized in here. And I have, as you know, a 1953 set of encyclopedias, and I researched it, and I have found 2 of those words. I will admit there are 2 of those words. They're under Anatomy of Man under sexual reproduction, and they are clitoris and vulva. The word labia, though, I cannot find, and I have a 1943 sexual education edition coming because I will prove that Anne Franks did not have knowledge of those words because they were not in the vernacular and they weren't even in the science dictionary. So for the excuse to say that she wrote that cannot possibly be true. Thank you for listening to me.
Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and if you're a city resident.
Jeannie Trushinsky. I do not live in the city limits of Wasilla. We have got so many great things going on at the library. We just restarted our story times. We have 3 days a week. We have 1 day is toddlers, 1 day is preschoolers, 1 day is baby lap sit. We've had 60+ people at every one of those. I went in the other day as I was getting ready for our activity that was going to follow, and it's really heartwarming to be in there and see parents and kids, and it's just really awesome. Last week was a busy week for the Friends of the Library. On Monday, we restarted our book club and novel knitters. We take off July through September. And for our knitting club, we had 6 folks knitting away. And for our book club, we had 18 people. We're almost kind of at a capacity where we've got to try and figure out what to do because we can just barely squeeze 18 people around the fireplace. But it was a great discussion about a remarkable book called Remarkably Bright Creatures. On Tuesday, we had Tricia Brown, who was the author of this book, The Queen of Fairbanks. It was really an incredible tea that we had with her, and what's really great about this is this woman, Irene, lived in Fairbanks, and she was essentially a homeless person, and she was really embraced by the community. And one of the former policemen that retired from Fairbanks that knew her well came to the tea, and he talked about her and said how much the community loved her and that the police never had any problem with her. It was a heartwarming experience. And there was no irony lost on me that one of the people that came into the tea was one of our local homeless people. And last year too, when we had a tea, the homeless people joined us. And it's really, I love that about the library. The library is for so many people in our community. So it was really awesome. On Wednesday, we started our first Art for Seniors in the Library. The classes made up of 15 folks. It was really a great day. Everybody was really happy, really enjoyed it. That course will continue for 8 weeks. So I'm going to invite you now, and I'm going to invite you several times, but December 11th, we'll do a culminating activity at 3 o'clock at the library to share with you the art that everybody has created. And I hope that you will take the opportunity and come and see what our seniors have made, and hopefully to see and hear about their experience in this program. This coming Tuesday, not tomorrow, but the next Tuesday, October 22nd, we're going to have our next Music in the Library concert, and Aspen Yarrow, along with 3000-21, will be performing. It's going to be a Halloween event. We're going to have trick or treat around the Story Walk, and we're encouraging folks to come. You don't have to be going to the concert to do the trick or treat. You can still come. The Wasilla High School basketball team is going to help us out and hand out items around the trick or treat, the Story Walk, and we'll have trick or treat inside also with refreshments, which is what we did before the concert last time, which was really positive. And people can meet the performers before the concert. So hope if you have an opportunity, you can come. It's a really great event. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Is there anyone else that would like to testify at this time? Come up and please state your name. You've got 3 minutes. And if you are a citizen of Wasilla.
Thank you so much. So my name is Dr. David Martin. I'm a chiropractor here in Wasilla. I don't live within the city limits. So I'm here from Kings, Alaska, up on the hill. I help lead the Kings CERT team, which is one of the newest CERT teams here in the Matsu Borough. It's based out of our church, so that's a community emergency response team. The person that helps guide us is Talon Bovey over at the Emergency Operations Center. This Saturday, we're going to be graduating another 21 people from the CERT basic class, which will bring our total up to 50 graduates from that CERT program, emergency preparedness program. My team has been able to log over 1,000 volunteer hours doing community outreach, including the mayor's picnic, 4th of July parade. We were brought in to help with crowd management, traffic management. We look forward to working with the city again in the future on that regards. Along that line of safety, security, emergency preparedness, we have a conference that's coming up November 1st and November 2nd. Some handouts there. It's specifically tailored for church security teams, or even just churches in general that may not have an emergency action plan in place. So we're bringing in subject matter experts. We have coordinated with Chickaloon Police Department,
Wasilla Police Department, Anchorage Police Department. We have people who've worked with the IDF and Mossad, ATF, DEA, a bunch of vendors from around the valley who can help train members of teams to legally, right? That's always the key, right? To legally use force in situations to help keep congregations safe. So I just wanted to come and present, and if you guys are interested in flyers or signing up, thank you so much for the opportunity. We look forward to working with the City of Wasilla again in the future on any of your endeavors. Any questions?
No, I don't see any.
Thank you so
So
much.
thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify at this time? Seeing nobody, we are closing audience comments. Bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just refer to your clerk's report. I pulled some election stats back to 2020 that I thought you might find interesting. I have an out-of-office date, just update on attendees to the AML conference in December. And then City Hall will be closed October 18th for Alaska Day. We'll see you all here on the 28th, next regular meeting, and you'll be hearing from the office on scheduling the 2-hour special meeting. So thank you.
Madam Clerk, I have a question.
Yeah.
That 2-hour special meeting, that's not mine.
No.
No, okay.
No,
Just
that's mine.
just wanting to know.
That's ours.
Okay, Madam Attorney.
Well, I was very much looking forward to delving into landscaping tonight, but darn it, I'll have to wait. So just a reminder to take a look at the memo and the landscaping section, but the section of the memo on landscaping, that's where we'll delve in at the next meeting. Otherwise, no further comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Vlock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to thank everyone who came to speak tonight. It's always good to hear from everyone and helps us do our job. I did want to congratulate Councilmember Graham and Councilmember Call on their election. And that's about it. I'll see you on the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just thanks everybody for coming out tonight and just a good conversation tonight. I know we did not get to all of what we wanted to tonight, but I mean, hey, there's a lot of things we're diving into. I'm super excited for the legislative priorities that we passed tonight. Again, it's always good to get this in sooner. I know in years past it's been coming in a little bit closer, so I'm really glad to see that we're getting that a little bit sooner. Two questions or comments. One is we had the Wasilla High School representative here, and they were talking about a flag football, and there's going to be fireworks afterwards. A lot of us know recently that Wasilla High School had a fireworks show, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I was a little concerned because I did not know what was happening. I don't know if this would go to who this might go to, but is there any type of public service announcement that goes out in regards to fireworks being done? I mean, we know fireworks happen 4th of July, New Year's, but at a different time like that, 10 o'clock at night, it was a bit odd to hear a continuous amount of what sounded like gunshots at my house off of Church Road. So is there any type of announcement that we do or might or could send out to the public to let them know that that type of thing is happening?
Mr. Crafton, you're going to have to coordinate with Wasilla High School.
Okay. And then second one was in regards to the budget and the vac truck that we purchased. Just something I was going back on. Is there a reason why we didn't have it in the budget this year?
It actually was part of the budget in 2024 as a CIP project, and it was budgeted for $350,000. And that money carried forward, and I believe what happened was they needed to change the size of the vac truck, and so they needed more funding in order to do that. I think that's what from my understanding, that's what happened.
that, and they got more expensive in the last couple of years.
Right. So is there a reason, I mean, is it not normal that if we don't spend the money one year that we don't put it in the CIP budget for the next time, especially if, in this case, it went up in price?
Well, well, I think we were looking still for a $350,000 back truck is what we, and then when we went out and looked at the cooperative agreements that we have and the information that we've done on research, they found out that it was, I don't know, 592,000 or whatever the dollar amount is right now for the size of it.
570 or 580, something like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and I don't believe it's late, but what I think you saw is we moved monies. We didn't come back in and reappropriate money. We asked for permission to move monies to cover that difference in what it costs today, so.
Yeah, and I guess more so what I'm thinking at is in the staff summary, maybe just say, hey, we put this in here. It was a 2024 CIP. We never spent the money. You know, that's why it wasn't in this year's or something like that. Just so we know where it came from. Because again, over $500, almost $600,000 asked. I mean, again, I was happy to approve it. It was just, hey, why wasn't this in the budget originally? And so, like in my case, I didn't approve the 2024 budget. Might have been sitting here in the audience, but you guys know how exciting those meetings can get. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Crafton brings up a good point. Maybe during budget presentation this time, we can have a presentation of CIP carry forward items, things that I haven't, money that's been appropriated but not spent, but is still, in the budget for a previous year, but not to be included in a budget for a future year. So that would be a good addition, I think. Thank you, Councilmember Crafton. So for Chief, I have a question for you. I was out and about the other night, and two, WPD vehicles were responding and having to progress through the intersection of KGB and the parks against the light. And while they did clear the intersection, it was a pretty close call for the lead vehicle to get there. So, the fire department has Opticon, which allows them to change the light from red to green and change a green light from green to red. Is that something that's available to the police department? And I don't really want you to answer that today, but if you could come forward with a report at some time saying it is available to us, this is what it would cost, or it isn't available to us. Because I know the last significant accident we had with the police department involved not clearing an intersection and, the loss of some duty time as well as the loss of a vehicle. And I don't know what our insurance company paid out to the other vehicle, but that was fairly expensive for the city. So I would appreciate some information on that at a future council meeting.
I can answer it now for you. I've researched this extensively.
If you would like to answer now.
If you don't mind, I've looked into this. How come the fire department has it? It's a good tool. They're about $3,000 pop for each vehicle. I looked at getting grants for that. They do have a different signal that does not work well when light bars are covered in snow or frost or anything like this. But it would be an expense, and it would be integrated into the light bar would not be cheap. Just the part itself would be $3,000. Then you have the labor on top of that. Was the last quote that we had. We started looking at alternatives, and right now the cost would just be too much to get that unless there's some kind of a grant that we could put in for through the Alaska Highway Safety Office or so as such to help with mitigate those costs for each vehicle.
And are the fire departments Opticons? Are they covered under grant money, or are they covered under state money? Are they covered under borough money? How does that work?
Yeah, maybe 911 grants. They're prone to a little bit more grants than what we are. And we try to write our own grants internally here. Anything that we try to, like the JAG grant was wrote internally. And again, with the Alaska Highway Safety Office, you have a 1 month window to write a pretty extensive grant. Sometimes it just doesn't get done.
Okay, yeah, maybe we could ask our lobbyists to look into that, see if there's some sort of statewide legislation that might be, because I'd hate to see for us to have somebody else injured, either our citizens or our employees, and then of course lose a vehicle, tie up an intersection for hours. I mean, if we could have $5,000 or $6,000 a car, to me that seems like it would be worth looking into, particularly if other agencies would do that. So thank you, Chief. Second question is for Eric, because I know he likes the microphone. So I've had some complaints recently about airport parking. People lease tie-down space from us, and they're fairly inexpensive. The tie-down spaces are marked, with a row number and a space number, but I won't say fairly frequently, but at least a couple times a week, people will park in somebody else's spot. And there is no penalty for doing that. Could you perhaps work with the airport commission and find out, do we need a penalty? Who can actually assess that penalty for it to be legal, for things to happen there? I mean, what are we leasing those spots for? They're pretty cheap. They're like $50 a month or something, or even less. But but I mean, if we put $100 parking in the wrong spot thing on there, when they can park for $5 a day at transient parking, I think that would help with things. But I'd be interested in hearing what the airport commission thinks about that. If you could kind of put that on the back burner, I'd appreciate that.
Will do.
Other than that, I want to thank everybody for being here. To the 3% of us that voted, thank you for voting Kathy, Cottle, and I in. That means Kathy and I were the only ones in the meeting to vote. But it's tough to get voter turnout when there's nothing on the ballot. And I have to admit, this is the first time I've ever run unopposed. It was kind of nice not to have to go out on election night and take signs down. But I would have rather had an opponent and get a 10% turnout than be elected without a turnout. Because to me, that signals that people aren't interested in spending the time to do this, or putting up with whatever the inconveniences are that are associated with it. But to those of you that voted, thank you, and to those of you that didn't vote but wish me well, anyway, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Rubio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On that note, congratulations to Cottle and Graham. 3% is 3%. You got the vote. Question for, or more so, I think it might go to Crystal Nygaard, for what's going on with the status of the planner?
Thank you, Councilmember Rubio. We are excited that we got an applicant today. And I called actually I had a really good conversation with the borough because they just lost 2 of theirs. So we are going to reach out to this applicant. They're not a certified planner, but they've got planning experience. And so our goal is yesterday. But they're very, very hard to come by.
Thank you for that. And then one more question. The ERP study, can we get a copy of that for all the council members? Awesome.
Yep. It's
Thank
a
you.
big one. It's lots of reading.
Yeah.
But Title 16 has prepared you, so.
We're ready. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I do want to thank those people that did come out and vote. It's not exciting when it's not a mayoral year, and both council members are running unopposed, although I was out there election night pulling down signs in the dark by myself, so. I do want to thank people that come out. It's hard to get people to come out when this year is so focused on state and national elections, but I do appreciate those that did come out. I do want to thank Mr. Sands for coming out and for speaking to the council and for your concerns. Sometimes the way we have things, requirements for commissions, council, anything, sometimes things are written a long time ago, and unless somebody does bring something forward, people don't always think about that, well, you know, maybe we do need to update. Our society changes, we're a mobile society now. People do work a lot of remote places, so I do appreciate your comments tonight. Thank you for that. I do want to thank Public Works and especially our deputy clerk for taking on the cemetery project and updating the board out there. The board looks great. I appreciate that it is all up to date, and our deputy clerk took on that updating and adding a QR code out there, which I tested. Works great. I actually, using it, was able to find a couple of family graves that I didn't know where they were, where I had walked the cemetery and couldn't find them, and they had been interred there since the last update some years ago. So very much appreciated. And I don't know if, Eric, if you can answer this or not, is there any plans to kind of spruce up that gazebo out there? It's looking pretty tacky.
I will have to get back to you on that. I don't know about its condition. I'll definitely look into it with our staff.
Okay, yeah, and it's gotten very old. I don't know if it ever gets used for more than partying or things like that. Just a suggestion, if it's not really worth fixing, maybe taking it out and putting in a couple nice benches.
We'll look into that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight and for the ones of you that spoke. And Holly, I'm so sorry that we had to put it off one more time, but it's already 9:06 and the witching hour is 9 o'clock, you know. So, anyway, but thank you all and thank you for your participation. We will see you here on the 28th. Am I correct? Have a good day off on Friday. And with that, we are adjourned at 9:07.
And Jackie and Jeannie, if I could see you both for just a second, please.
I know,